Chapter 16. Show me the group chat with 70,000 women exchanging tips on how to rape the men they know. Farida D. I was flipping the coin a lot in my van in the evening. Should I leave? No. Should I tell Carla? No. Should I tell Billy? Yes. Here goes nothing. Obviously, there was something about Billy that I was sus on. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't think she was involved, or did I? Billy went out of her way to be liked by the males. She was enthusiastically nice to me, but I felt it was performative. There was also quite a weird trip that we made one day. It was out to Thunderbolt's cave, a bushranger who hid out from the fires. There was a big campsite with a few caravans scattered around. We took off on the walk up a small scrubby hill on a dirt walking track to the cave. It was enjoyable hanging out with Billy. We'd yell, sang in her car on the way, me with my head out the window like a happy dog. While we were up at the cave, all of these Euro males showed up. I heard them all coming up the track and instinctively put myself down on a lower path so they wouldn't have to all troop by me. They stopped and started to talk to us. Billy had positioned herself beside the cave. I think she'd even removed some clothing and hitched her shirt into a crop top. She was trying to look sexy. She was very cute, so she'd achieved the desired result. They didn't want to talk to her, though. They wanted to talk to me. I was in a massive, ugly straw fishing hat, sunnies, baggy shorts, and a man's long-sleeve shirt covering my arms from the sun. You could tell I was a woman, but only just. I found out that they were from Denmark and staying on Philippa's farm, doing the grain harvesting. When they'd had enough, they seemed to wind up the conversation. They were interested in talking to me, but they weren't that friendly either. They ignored Billy and she didn't engage them in conversation. It was like she already knew them and them her. The exercise was to talk to me. What's going on here? One afternoon after work, I called Billy down to my van and set up a bit of seating for us. I relayed my fears to her about how all the males had found revenge porn of me and were referring to the videos right in front of me. I should have expected it, but it was still unwelcome. In her batshit overly optimistic way, she said that I was probably imagining it. She made excuses for the dork, almost stuck up for him, for them. He always says sexual stuff. He says it in front of me too. The thing is, it wasn't sexual. It was innocent sounding, though was definitely related to some dark stuff. The horrible laughs that came out of their ugly mouths were the tell. James was never involved. He was just dark on me. What she said next was quite a tell. It's because you're so pretty, in relation to having IBA footage filmed and shared of me. Whoa, that's not the appropriate response. I know she's young and naive, but I realised I couldn't trust her. She also said, that's the problem with knowing too much. It was just getting worse. I wasn't going to ask her to clarify what she meant by these statements. They were what they were, and so many of her moves told me that she was probably terrified of them. Did she know what they were capable of because she was involved? The only other person not involved was Philippa. I don't think she liked me, but she didn't appreciate the obvious sexual jokes they made, along with the coded ones. Philippa was local, worked there full-time, and would have been off-limits to these sex pests. Billy had bought up big in Tarkiro and started to dress exactly like her, right down to the $200 Western straw hat. I'm sure this was a measure of protection. Where was she getting the dough from? We hadn't been paid yet. One afternoon while we were kicking around for things to do, I had an epiphany. Hey, do you guys think it'd be all right if I took off until the actual harvest starts? My place is only a half day's drive away. I could be back within a day's notice. I was asking Philippa because she was the only one I respected enough to ask work questions. She just said to ask Carla. I was nervous about this. I really wanted to go home. I really wanted to tell Wira Billy all about what was happening at this place. She knew women in the Fed police, in all sorts of government departments, and probably great women solicitors too. She'd be furious about this shit. I rang Carla. Carla was reticent. Her friendly tone towards me had changed. I wondered if the dork had already started the white ant procedure. What a little bitch he was. Interestingly, I'd heard the BCT and the perv bitching about him behind his back. They were all petty little bitches who would eventually fuck each other up because they all hold each other's secrets and are bad at that. Luckily, Carla agreed. She had no choice. I was a casual worker and there wasn't enough work right now. One morning while I'd been working with the BCT, he made moaning noises like a woman having sex. Like me having sex, it was meant to be. It was on the tip of my tongue to say, I guess you've never heard a woman make those sounds in real life. He was aggressive and overly emotional, so I didn't. He also made a noise like a person trying to talk who was chewing on their tongue, or a dick. That also must have been me. What the fuck did those freaks do to me? I figured the slurring was from the drugs. I hoped that if they'd shoved a dick in my mouth in that state, I would have bit it. I was learning a whole lot about this horror show from these horror movie characters, and I was just rolling along, pretending it wasn't happening. A mental breakdown was inevitable. The breakdown happened in two ways. I worked with the BCT, James and Blondie blowing grain out of the huge grain storage shed. They were being lazy as usual and I was bending over backwards to help BCT, who operated the blower. I had to work harder than everyone else because I was being cast to the outside. On one break, I was outside the shed. The two boyfriends, some of the other dirtbags had started to refer to them as that too, which was funny, were standing a distance away from me, talking and looking my way, discussing me probably. Blow-by-blow descriptions of the porn. They were obsessed. I picked up a pole and spun it around like a ninja. Then I just let loose on an iron fence by the railway line. I bashed and bashed that thing till it broke. I think I did it to show them, don't fuck with me, I'll fuck you up. The BCT saw it too. Good. The other breakdown happened in my van after work. I couldn't find my hairbrush. For some reason, well, probably a legitimate reason, I thought one of the sex pests had stolen it. They could use the hair on it to leave DNA. For what purpose? They'd steal some plant equipment, they were the type to do that, and frame the crime on me with the hair. This made no sense, but I couldn't let it go. Why frame me? They'd blackmail me into being gang raped by them. Do it or we'll say you stole plant equipment. The hairbrush showed up, but not before I had a total panic attack. I felt that I should get out of my van and walk around. Billy happened by and I went and spoke with her. I think I'm having a bit of a mental breakdown over this dork situation. I was playing music on my Spotify through my speakers and just then an ad for one of those online therapy companies came on. There you go, maybe you need therapy. Damn this girl, I don't know why I bothered. It shook me into logic though and I did calm down. It was impossible to work like this. Harassed, gaslit, ostracized, mocked, and probably plotted against. This was really on. Everything was strange. I'd never been in such a situation. Friday afternoon finally came. I walked up to the front gate, refusing lifts from Billy and whoever else drove past. I hadn't bothered telling the dork and the perv that I was leaving. Treat them like nobodies, like they treated me. I went in to sign off with my card and took a picture of all their full names on the timesheet in case I needed it. I really didn't know if I was coming back. The dork and the perv were talking on the stairs. They completely ignored me and me them. I'd gotten a reaction out of the perv, who was the least likely to show his disgusting hand of cards. When we were having a work meeting previously that afternoon, he'd asked Carla on an open call, "What about fatigue days?" I immediately knew that question was about me leaving and them apparently not having days off because of that. I knew that wasn't the case. There were too many of us for the amount of work there was. They were just pissed off that I was leaving. In that moment, I knew they had plans for me. The dork was probably organising every male in the district for some kind of Guinness Book of Records gang rape. I gave the perv the most smug, fuck you look that I could muster, and he did the same. Despite my brazenness, I was shit scared now. I had one night left to spend here. At this meeting, Philippa asked me where I was going on my travels. Everyone fell silent to listen to what I had to say. They often did this. I was the star in that place sometimes. The star victim. I gruffly said, "I'm going to see a man about a horse, then I'm going to relax." I wanted them to think I was going to consult some heavies. They all fell silent. None of them made jokes about me having sex with a horse. Be nervous, be bluffed, you sex pests. I was so stressed as I packed down my marquee kitchen. I couldn't eat, just drank sweet drinks and chain-smoked durries. I'd found a perfect little loading ramp to put the bike onto the back of the van so I wouldn't have to ask them for any help. I was a quivering wreck as I did it, but I did it. There was a fair drop into the van for the bike, but I managed it without losing balance. I was fucking badass and I was getting away. James was going to be at Blondie's house for the weekend. A cute sleepover for those two. I'd said goodbye to James and he said, "Oh, that was short-lived." I said that I'd be back when the harvest started, which I still believed. He seemed not to, so he was aware of the harassment I was getting then. I even gave James a heads up for his benefit during my last day. It wasn't to help him out, it was to piss off the dork. Since that cockhead spoke all sorts of shit right in front of me like I wasn't even there, I'd overheard him tell some of the others that one of them is going to go. I hoped they were going to fire Blondie, but that was too good to be true. They'd sacked James because he was a lazy shit. I relayed to James what the dork had said, and the pure twit replied, "What, one of us?" He thought that either Billy, he or I was going to get the boot. I said, "No, you. It's you they're thinking of booting." I knew that since I was going, I was probably saving his skin because they'd need him more. He looked absolutely astonished and thanked me. How thick was this guy? He even called me babe, so he was getting all comfortable again. I'm sure I could have whistled him up if I wanted to, and in that state I may have been able to get info out of him. Oh, if only I could bring myself to do that. It was the last thing I felt like having to do, though. Not worth the trouble. My main worry now was whether I'd be safe tonight. Billy was going to sleep in her donga. She'd been invited to a pub meal with Philippa. Predictably, I was really on the outside of everyone now. Even Philippa was being manipulated by their bullshit. What a pack of idiots. I couldn't wait to get away. I was going to park the van right in front of Billy's donga so she could hear me if I yelled. I wasn't completely sure she would, of course. And instead of sleeping in the van, which would have been the obvious place to find me, I slept in the room that was used as the staff toilet. No one would suspect that I'd sleep there. I heard Billy come in late. She hadn't picked up any of the Euro boys from the cave day like she'd probably hoped. She was off to a rodeo on her own for the weekend the next day. A part of me worried for her. If they couldn't rape me, maybe they'd go after her. She was a perfect target, really, siding with the bullies. That's what you get as a woman when you do that. Rapists don't differentiate. They know they could get away with it. I lay there, not sleeping till it was about 4 a.m. That'd do. I'd drive slowly till daylight to avoid ruse. The trip home was full of disappointment. I really hoped that I could go back and work. If they were all busy with their own duties and I didn't have to be around them, maybe I'd be safe. I'd previously decided to go camp at the showgrounds where all the worker dongas were going to be. It wouldn't be fun riding my motorcycle to work every day, but maybe I could jump in others' cars. But what if there are a whole lot of blokes staying there and the dork got to them with the shared IBA footage? Everywhere would be dangerous. Here I was again, prevented from working by arseholes. I was so mad, sad, and generally messed up. Of course, all the comebacks I could have said flooded into my head as I screamed along to Punk. It doesn't hurt to think up comebacks to some of the ridiculous shit I've had to hear from the morons in the workplaces that I've been in over the past few years. I held my tongue because they're children and they'd be more upset about getting what they give. I don't believe it makes them respect you more. I don't want to be respected by those types. Feared, maybe, although they become resentful at that perceived imbalance of power. And I was thinking about that kid who tried to get near me at the work site. When he showed up, his whole body language was alert as he searched for me and spotted me. He kept glancing my way while we were rolling up plastic. I thought he liked the look of me. How ignorant I was. Not my fault, and I don't blame myself. This was an unforgivable taking away of my human rights. He'd look on his grubby little app before he got over to our work site and realised that me, the target, was going to be there. So he searched me out and tried to get near me. As he was approaching me, he had a tense look on his face. I mean, it looked like he was coming for me. The truth is, he really was. Whether he was going to talk to me or just ignore me and listen to the ping of his phone in his pocket as it betrayed my location. Because I was with James, he turned around and went back to where he was standing. So he was wary of the male with me, but not wary of me. He had absolutely no qualms about coming up close to me otherwise. He didn't manage it that day, but he and his gooning grommet mates in the cafe did. Perhaps they were recording the convo I was having with Billy and James. They were breaching my human rights, sharing my privacy to rapists and murderers. Yes, murderers. Who the fuck fully knows who's accessing this info? They were irresponsible incels, but they were also evil grown-ass males. As I stood and walked past their table, I should have grabbed their long hair and slammed their heads together. It would have made a nice knocking sound, skulls cracking against skulls. I didn't let myself get angry about it at the time. Truth be told, I was scared, but didn't want to admit it to myself, because I'm tough like that, tougher than those 4 grommets who would have gone crying to the cops if I'd have assaulted them. That's just what you get when you betray someone's right to privacy, to the freedom that those undeserving cunts get to enjoy.